Okay, for everybody, we'll take your seats, please, so we can get started. Sit down, please. Now, the purpose of this work session is to go through AO 2010-81. And this is going to be on the record. We need to go around the table and have everybody identify themselves for the record. Julia, we'll start with you, ma'am.
Julia Tucker, Assembly Council.
Alderman Anchorage Assembly.
Harriet Drummond, Assembly.
Ernie Hall, Assembly.
Patrick Flood, Assembly.
Dick Cheney, Assembly.
Debbie Ossiander, Assembly.
Jennifer Johnston, Assembly.
Dan Sullivan, Mayor.
Gary Weaver, Community Development.
Cheryl Frasca, OMB. Linda Burns, Community Development.
Okay. Now, AO 2010-81 has a bunch, I think it's 10 pages long, has a bunch of fees that are being increased. And I want everybody to understand that the budget we've got in front of us this year is predicated upon these fees being passed. So if you're going to take something out, and you can't do anything at the work session, this is just for information. But if it gets to the point at the assembly meeting, when we get to the budget, you want to take something out of here, you've got to figure out where the corresponding reduction is going to come out of the budget, or how you're going to transfer it around, because nothing's for free. Cheryl, anything on that? Am I right or wrong?
That nothing's for free, yeah, you're right.
Okay. Just wanted to check with you.
It used to be.
Which administration? Anyway. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's work session is to review the proposals that we've presented in the budget that include about $2,090,000 worth of increases in various fees and fines. As we prepared the budget, we asked each department to do a thorough look of the existing revenue sources within their departments so that we could put forth a balanced approach of not just finding cuts and savings, but also looking at ways to increase revenues. And so this document reflects that effort by the departments, and a very thorough effort indeed. And in many cases, we've discovered certainly as we go towards more of a cost user, cost payer sort of system, which is what the public made very clear in the community dialogue they'd like to see us go to. That a lot of these fees and/or fines have not been changed in many, many years, certainly have not kept pace with inflation, and in many cases are just the appropriate thing to do. So the departments will kind of walk you through what they presented to us as part of their budget considerations and what we've now put forward to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we using the white, yellow, or green sheet? Cheryl?
We're using what we distributed today. The white sheet is the green sheet blown up. Okay?
Now, is there enough of these for the public?
Yes, there's many on, we made 50 copies. So, and also it's sorted by department, so it would facilitate the discussion about all the changes that a department has.
Okay, well, Cheryl's going through this. If some members have questions, raise your hand. I'll call on you. Then we'll move on to the next one. Harriet?
Yeah, the yellow one you passed out, is that the same as the Parks Department section in the, attached to the back of the ordinance, Exhibit A?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this is just a follow along separate.
Well, we'll have to do this separate because it's not part of the AO. So this is a supplement to the AO. It's actually an exhibit that's in the AO.
Yeah, the Parks Department has the ability to change their fees and fines within their department without coming for budget approval.
Jennifer?
Since community development has changed, could you also, when you address these permanent fees or increased fees, what fund it goes into? Thank you.
Lead off, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And Jerry Weaver and Linda Brooks are going to kick this off.
I'll give you an overview here, but Linda's here. She's the budget person for the department, for the admin. She knows the fees in detail, that if you get into specific questions, that she can get into that with you. But generally, in preparing the 2011 budget, we've
got to increase the volume.
We have about $400,000 proposed increased fees for both the planning department and development services. And that's in conjunction with the four positions that we're losing in the department that are presently vacant. So that's basically how we got to the 2011 budget. We're proposing for about $400,000 in additional fees. The majority of them in development services, with about $50,000 in the planning division. The fees for development services for permitting building permits, they've changed in 2009. It took effect on the 1st of 2009. They were prepared in 2008, and then dialogue and discussion that took place at that time was that we weren't quite sure that, you know, the fee adjustments were appropriate. We indicated that they need to be tweaked in the future, higher or lower, and that's basically what we've done in the year and a half since they were adopted. Determined that they weren't recovering the cost of the services. So we're proposing, as you can see on the first 2 pages, fee changes for development services permitting. There are a lot of nuances, but I'll give you just a general overview of why we're proposing to change them. Originally, in the permit fee, if we were going to get a building permit, was all encompassing with the evaluation of the building. Inspections were part of that. The sub-permits were part of that, the electrical, plumbing. Those were separated out. And that they were just the tweaks that were, how they were separated out just doesn't recover the cost of the services. So basically, we're proposing some changes to the commercial applications, the residential permits. There's, you can see the dollar amounts there that are proposed for the commercial residential. And the big thing probably is changing inspection fees from $130 to $150. But at the end of the day, it's about $350,000 for that division. $50,000 in fee increases for planning. We looked at the northwest part of the United States and determined our fees were changed in 2003 in the planning division. We had a CPI provision in there at the time. They were changed pretty significantly because they hadn't been changed in probably 20 plus years. So we looked at what the other communities were charging with the cost of delivery of the service. So they were adjusted in 2003. We had a CPI provision in there. It came out later, and so we took it out later. If it had stayed in there, we probably would have been reasonably close to what they should be today. So that's kind of an overview. If you want to get into the specific ones, Linda is here.
You know what we could do, Jerry, is I can just open up to assembly members in your particular department. And that way, if they've got a question, a specific one, we can deal with it. Paul? I'll work my way around that. Paul?
I know.
Any within this department?
Yes, I know Mr. Starr's not currently here, but does any of these fees indicate money's going towards Fund 181? Or is it all 181 funds? Or?
No, it's 101 and 181 here both. You have to know what they are. The first one here for $211,000, that's Fund 181, that's inspection fees. The next one down is 101, that's land use review. Land use is the general fund. The next one on down, plan review fees, $95,000, that's 181. The next one down is 101, general fund, land use review. The next one on down, 5,500, that's 181. And then, let's see, if you go to the next page, the 65,000, that would be from 181. If you go to the one there that says 16,000, that would also be from 181. You see there, reduction, 11,500, that would be from 181. Oh, no, excuse me, that's on-site water and wastewater, that's the general fund. And then when you get down to 18 and 19, those are planning fees. Planning is exclusively in the general fund.
Paul?
And then I just noted, just briefly, not to compare apples to apples or orange or whatever, when I looked through the police, which is near and dear in the heart, the overtime fees for police is calculated at 147, and they're showing that an inspector is going to be billed at 150 an hour.
Yeah, but what you're looking at is you need to recover the full cost of the department. I mean, when you're covering not just the people that go out and do the inspections, you're also covering some of the admin support staff, the whole permit counter where people come in to apply for their permits. That's a staff that all that cost has to be covered. There's overhead costs. I mean, leasing costs. I mean, you're not looking at what people make. You're looking at what it costs to run that unit, because the building safety section is supposed to be totally self-supporting, so you have to take into account what all the costs are to run it, and then recover your costs through the fees. And that's the reason for the increase, is to try and bring the fund more into balance.
Anything else on community development, Paul? Harriet, community development? LB, community development?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie? Pat?
Well, since Mr. Starr is absent, I'll ask the question for him. This doesn't address the 181's other problems, correct? It's just prospective.
Correct.
Correct.
So we still need to come up with a plan to deal with 181.
Right.
Okay. And then just generally, it might be useful the next time we produce a version of this, just to have all the funds identified as to which goes where.
You could add another column for the funds.
I think that'd be useful for the members. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Debbie?
I'd like clarification a little bit more on 18 and 19, the rezoning. As I read this, it appeared to me that the rezoning was dependent upon lot size. Is that correct?
I think on the rezoning one, that under the new one, there's a base fee and then so much per acre, but there was an existing thing in code for a small residential lot where it's a minimal amount. Is it listed right here what it was? Like 1,500 maybe, and I think Jerry says under the change, any type of property, commercial, industrial, residential, if it meets the small size, has a flat fee of 2,500. So there's a provision and an exception, and it's actually expanded because it's gonna be any type of property, whereas previously it was a single residential one. And now, that one for a very small rezone area is gonna be for any type.
Okay.
But all the others are gonna be a base fee plus so much per acre.
Okay, my issue is, this seems discriminatory against large lot properties. Basically, well frankly, there's a fair number of properties in my district that are inadequately zoned because there was a lot of opposition at the time and they've been recently zoned, and they're zoned incorrectly. The way this works, if I've got a lot, if I understand this correctly, if I've got a lot that's an acre, I pay substantially less than if I've got a 2-acre lot. And it seems to me the work would be the same either way. And if this is true, it seems discriminatory against the rural areas.
Jerry?
Mr. Chairman, Associated, basically the concept was the larger the rezoning, the more complex that it could possibly be, the more work it might require. But that's kind of the basic logic for the
No, I
incremental.
get that, Jerry, but it seems to me lots. If you've got multiple lots, then it should cost more. But if it's one lot, does it cost more if it's 2 acre or 1 acre for one lot?
It's not the lots, it's an acreage. We calculated it to acreage, so the rezoning fees would be based upon acreage. But where we did lower we did adjust, I believe we lowered it for lots that were contiguous to an existing zoning that were less than an acre. We reduced that fee.
All right, my reading, and I'm sure, I'd like to learn more about this, because my reading is, my home, if I wanted to rezone my lot, it would cost me like $9,000, maybe $10,000 if I read it correctly. My neighbor across the street, all right, I want to learn more. I'm just saying, this is my fear. My neighbor across the street who's lots an acre, it's going to cost them $2,000, and that's crazy.
We'll make it clear.
Let's you and I talk offline, okay? The second thing I'd like to do is if you could summarize exactly what number 19 means. Does that mean a short plat and a long plat cost the same amount?
No, there's actually, the description on this really isn't quite that clear, because the only change being made there is there's a new fee for commercial fragmented lots. Otherwise, the platting fees remain the same. And Jerry will have to correct me, but how they explained to me a commercial fragmented lot is you have like a big commercial.
These fee adjustments are for what people call commercial fragment lot development.
And I understand.
There's no fee schedule for them now, there's no public hearing required for them now. And
Okay.
people have come to use them as conventional subdivisions, they require the same amount of work to review. So we're basically putting a fee on that application to be able to do cost recovery.
Okay, so Jerry, number 19, which is the 15,000 income, is only for commercial frag lots?
Correct.
Okay, could we change the narrative, because right now it reads preliminary plat, which covers a whole lot of ground. Yeah,
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that all, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Jennifer?
Commercial frag lots. price.
We're not processing the ordinance right now, we're adjusting that.
So,
It's
so.
just the fees.
Just the fees, and so how would this apply to one that has a master plan? You know, if you have a master plan for your large commercial. It's still, if you.
Jennifer Louder.
If you applied for a plat, a preliminary plat with frag lots within the master plan, but it still matched your master plan, you'd still be paying the $9,000.
Anything else, ma'am? Quick question for you. 7, plumbing fees. Does that include water heaters? I've been getting calls from people, they buy a water heater for $200 at Lowe's or Home Depot, one of them, and we're gonna require them to get a $150 permit to put the water heater in?
Mr. Chairman, that's a concern of mine as well, just generally, when I first heard about that. And we've tweaked the fees to be able to allow 2 inspections for that, but yes, there is a fee to install a water heater.
There is one now.
There is one now.
I know there is one now, but the question is there a way we can do away with the fee if they get a licensed plumber to install it? It just seems strange to have a fee.
I see the former building official.
I can help you. There is a major safety issue with water heaters being installed incorrectly, with the drip leg, with the gas lines being connected. People don't realize it. I have several videos. I could send you a video that exactly tells you why.
Because I get calls.
People install them, if you don't do it right, they can blow up. It's a major safety issue.
Trainee, what we did do, there was an inequity about the methodology having water heaters put in a single-family home. There were multiple inspections because of people not being there, the plumber, there's lack of, but what we did was adjust it to make it equitable so they could get up to 2 inspections for that fee.
Ron, send me the video if you've
I
got it,
will.
please.
It's
Moving on
pretty
down, we're now going down to finance. And this one is an interesting one. We're getting calls even before I think it came off your machine. So let's talk about finance. Who's there to talk about that one? Who's the person that's got the aircraft fee?
Lucinda and Dan.
Come on up the table. If it's not an airplane, it's a car. Hi, Dan. You want to go through your section, please, sir?
Okay, sure. I'll just be very brief because I think most people heard from us at the last work session. But the first fee that we proposed is for aircraft registration tax, and this is a current existing fee that we propose for a single engine to go from $75 to $150. And then for a twin engine, it would also double from $125 to $250. On the aircraft tax, we were asked to look at potential increases, and we know that this one came into existence and actually started in 1995. Prior to that, it was based on the value of the aircraft, and so we actually looked up some information about what an aircraft would have paid back in time in '94 versus what it pays now. And we had like a sample aircraft that was $72,000, would have paid about $11.99 in tax, $1,199. That switched down to $75 for that same aircraft starting in '95. So there was a major adjustment back then. The fee has never changed since it came into existence in '95. And even with inflation, if you were inflation-proof that fee, $75 would be at least $106, $108, somewhere in that range. So it hasn't kept up with inflation. We did do some research on what other jurisdictions are doing around the country, and we find that there's 8 or 10 different methods of taxing aircraft. Some of them are very low, even lower than our existing fee. Some of them are much higher than even our new fee. So it runs the gamut. And we propose this as a potential revenue. It's only, I think, about a little over $200,000 of additional revenue for the city. But we proposed it because it was a stale revenue that hadn't changed in a very long time.
What about the cars?
Okay, on auto tax, this is a much broader applied tax, obviously, it's any vehicle within the city. I think there's I want to say 100, and I have the exact numbers in my folder here, but it's 120 some thousand, it might be more. But anyway, this particular tax has not changed since inception, since 1978. And this affects all types of vehicles. And what we propose to do is basically match the rates that are authorized by state law. So it's already there, it's just a matter of us asking for it. And we would match the rates of Mat-Su. And so right now, there's some incentive for people to register their car, say, possibly in Anchorage because it's cheaper, in Mat-Su because it's more expensive. That will change, the dynamic will change when we match their rates. We actually have newer cars in Anchorage than they do in Mat-Su, so there's going to be some dynamic there too, because the way they charge it is based on the age of the vehicle. So we've projected, I think it's around $4 million, so the increase that's not really cited on here. But the effective date is not until January 1st, 2012, because you have to register your intent to change the rates 1 year in advance. And
So for a new car, what would it run?
it would go to, I don't know if you have.
It increases $26
Yeah.
up to $150 for every 2 years, right?
Every 2
It's a
years, it's
biennial.
biennial.
For 2 years?
Yeah.
Yep.
I know I didn't have it on this sheet, though.
Okay. Actually, just to let you know, like passenger vehicles alone, there's 188,000 passenger vehicles in Anchorage. And that's the biggest lot, and then they also tax a whole variety of others. The rate for a standard passenger vehicle would go up, like Cheryl said, to match Mat-Su. Yeah. The older vehicles are the ones that would increase the most percentage-wise. We are significantly different from Mat-Su when it comes to older age vehicles. So some of those go up a lot. Dollar-wise, it's not a lot. Percentage-wise, it is a lot. So.
I'm going to go around the assembly for questions, because I'm sure we're going to have some. I would start with you, Bill, but I'm going to work over here with Jennifer. Jennifer?
As far as your aircraft tax, you said that you looked at a number of different cities. And what was the balance between the ones that had, or what was the difference of ones that had a higher tax versus a lower tax? Did you draw any?
I couldn't really make sense of what drove it for them. I mean, some did it based on the weight of the aircraft, based on how many passengers it held, some based on the value of the aircraft, some taxed at the time of sales, at the time of transfer. It was just all over the map. And I just know, just looking at them, that they can be thousands of dollars for a single aircraft, or it could be, very cheap. I mean, it could be $10, $20, $30 less than what we have now. So, we looked at it to see if there's any commonality, and there really wasn't.
And you couldn't find any commonality as far as the number of aircraft per capita, or if it was?
We didn't look at that, no. No, we did try to look at areas that we knew it's likely to have quite a number of aircraft, because of recreational aspects, and we were just seeing, Michigan and Northwest and things like that, but they were all doing it differently. Washington State actually tried to raise theirs by 5 times the current amount recently, and that failed. They wanted to take it to $500, and it failed. But that could have been they were going for too much at one time. So.
Debbie?
Well, I've been learning a lot about this topic. I discovered that we tax commercial aircraft on how long they're on the ground, by the way. And I also discovered that apparently we're not yet taxing private jets and helicopters. So that might be something to look into. But the big thing that is concerning to me that I've been trying to get my hands on is some relative justification for the amount being charged. I've been looking for trying to understand either what is taxed in other common areas. What about common valued RVs or boats? Is it roughly the same? And apparently the state assessor has already figured the total valuation for aircraft for the municipality. So even if we got that, and then he also has the number of aircraft, and divided it out, it would give something. Because the conversations I've had with the people in the community, there's a big misunderstanding about this. This is viewed as a fee for services rendered. rather than a valuation tax, so.
It's called a registration tax. It's not
Well,
like a fee
I
for service.
hear you, but people who call and are upset are not.
It's a privilege tax is what it's considered.
Privilege tax.
So you're
Anyways,
underprivileged.
so there's more information coming, basically is what I was gonna let you guys know.
Anything else, Brandon?
No, I think the motor vehicle is not, it's got a fairly good argument.
Pat?
On the whole, how have aircraft values changed since 1994 when we instituted this new methodology for taxation?
If you were to purchase one?
Yeah.
We did start to look into that, just, see if that would help at all. We looked at like a used aircraft in really good condition versus a brand new aircraft, and what the prices we were seeing were somewhere between 200 and 500,000 in that range, depending on how fancy you get with it. The ones that we looked at when we looked at what they used to pay back in '94, they were used, but they were the 70 to 100,000 was the ones we were coming upon. We didn't do an exhaustive search of it, but prices obviously have gone up a lot. Just the registration rate alone would have gone up from 75 to 106, 108. The aircraft that we looked at that I mentioned earlier, 76,000. If you inflation proofed it, it would be I think it was 100 and about a little over 100, 110 in today's dollars. So.
Well, yeah, but
It's gone up 45% is what the inflation rate's.
I appreciate that. Aircraft is not static in value. As it ages, there's wear and tear and so on and so forth. So
I'm talking brand new.
yeah, okay. But a used aircraft was 30 years old in 1994 versus a used aircraft that's 30 years old in 2010. Is there a comparable value? Is it the same amount?
No, they do depreciate, and yeah.
And then, do I correctly understand in looking at the table for motor vehicle registration, because the argument being advanced, and we just in the context of the aircraft tax, well, gee whiz, why don't we tax motorhomes in a similar manner, so on and so forth. I think what I'm reading here is motorhomes are, the tax level is determined by the state, and we can simply follow along.
Do they have a schedule that we can choose to pick from? And right now we're on the low end. In the future, if this were passed, we'd be on the high end.
But we couldn't segregate motorhomes out from other personally owned
No,
vehicles.
it's classified very specifically by state law. And motorhomes actually right now pay what a passenger car pays, 121, and go up to 150, whatever that match number is. So if you want to compare what a motorhome would pay versus a plane, that would be a good comparison.
Okay. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sturzer?
Well, my license plate says touch and go. I have 2 airplanes and an airplane hangar, so I don't want to be critical. My airplane values dropped last year 18%. We can add a new engine and change the price by $25,000. I wasn't here to hear the arguments back in '94, '95, but to value an aircraft, it's all over the board. And if you're trying to do a personal property tax disclosure of that, you can change the avionics panel in an aircraft and increase $50,000 tomorrow. So I don't think you're going to be able to do fixed value. What I'm hearing in the argument is the folks that use them as a hobby. It's a vocation for much like a fishing boat. And then there's also those that use them to make money. We don't charge the commercial users any different than we don't have a scope in there. I talked to a couple of them yesterday, and some of them just pay $75 per beaver.
That's an issue actually that we have recently been discussing, because it does seem to be a disparity in what the code is kind of silent to it right now. It says if you're a regular scheduled commercial aircraft, which is basically the big jet airliners, you're taxed on an apportioned value based on your landing formula and all that. If you're any other type of commercial aircraft that doesn't have a regular schedule, in place, you just automatically over time, historically we've just taxed them at this registration rate, which, if it's private jet or medevac or any of these, Ketchum.
Well, let me just stop you there. There would be 3 categories that you would operate under. The flight rules that they operate under, scheduled airlines fall under what they call FAR Part 121 regulations. The normal operators for the fishing guides and the lodges all fall under Part 135. They're licensed to make money as non-scheduled. The other groups, the Victoria's Secret jet that lands out at International or my airplane flight or flight rules 91. So you could really do it. Your heavy jet users and your commercial requirements would be that. So, I mean, we really need to decide what's flexible income and what's a variable income. You know, I've never been a fan of cost of a gross receipts tax necessarily, but I don't get a sense in the aviation users that I polled yesterday. A $250,000 beaver that's making $500,000 a month is a lot different than a guy that sits at Camel Lake and his airplane uses one time. And Debbie's right, the user expectation is that you're going to get something from it. And the argument that we don't take any of this money and put it into aviation is something that you know, maybe that's my fault for not saying we should enhance aviation-related items. Birchwood users don't want any part of airport management by the municipality. Merrill Field's funded without this tax, and Lake Hood likewise. So the user groups, you know, as I told Mr. Baker yesterday, the user groups want to respond, but right now they're just a little bit angry.
If I could say just one point on the Birchwood, because I know I've heard there's a lot coming from Birchwood. There was an article written by Alaska Dispatch where it said that I had said that all aircraft, whether they can be operated or not, are taxed, and that's not true. Just to clarify, it's only aircraft that can be operated and that are sort of permanently located at the place. The article said there's 400 aircraft affected by this tax. Our records show just a little over 100. So I just want to make sure you know what the impact is.
At Birchwood?
At Birchwood, yeah.
There's 600 airplane at Birchwood.
Well, I'm just saying what the article said, and then I'm telling you what our records say. We're only taxing 100, a little over 100 people at Birchwood.
So that means 500.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to keep,
Transient.
we need to keep the discussion down between him and this dummy member.
No, they're not transient. They're based on, and I don't mean to be rude, they're based on where the FAA registers the aircraft. And so you can have a registration owned by a corporation in Delaware based at Birchwood. I could change my address to Soldotna and still base at Birchwood by the FAA regulations. So I think we have a little bit of work to do to assure the residents that they're being taxed fairly.
Okay.
You know, and that's what it's called, is a tax. I mean, if we switch the definition to a user fee, maybe that's where we go down the path of trying to tap into general aviation. But I mean, you know, we're trying to entice folks to come to the table and get into tourism and make investments in infrastructure to help promote certain industries. You know, I met the mayor at a helicopter training center. The guys are doing that. You know, welcome to Anchorage. Here's a $500 bill for basing at Merrill on top of the, you know, I gripe a little bit because the aviation community in general pays a tremendous amount of money. To tie a plane down at Merrill Field, they're going to pay $1,000 a year to Merrill Field just to tie it down. So. That's all.
Any questions, Bill?
No questions, just observations.
Ernie?
Hopefully a chance to respond.
Well, I can't top the Victoria jet.
We wonder how you know about that, Bill.
The secret life of Bill Strong.
Yeah.
Nice jet too, let me tell you.
What caused the transition from going to being able to get $1,200 a year to going to a $75 registration fee? When that happened, you went in '94. They were
Okay, right. What triggered that?
Yes.
I believe it was the aviation community. I started with City in '93, and I still remember the outpouring from the aviation community when they made that change. They felt it was just way too high for them to bear the cost, and they lobbied the assembly, and I think it was Craig Campbell was the champion
on the assembly
of
with
the
me
issue.
at that time.
And they came out in droves. I mean, hundreds of them. It was huge, and they were successful, and that's what happened. So that's my recollection.
Thank you.
LB?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question based on a comment Ms. Osiander made, and I'd just like to have a clarification. She said that she didn't know that aircraft is taxed on based how long they're on the ground. What does that mean?
Landing.
I think you're talking about commercial, regularly scheduled aircraft.
Right.
Yeah, there is provision under the personal property chapter in the code that says if you're regularly scheduled and you're commercial use, that there's special formula, a portion of the formula they use based on your landing schedule. It doesn't talk about all other type of commercial. It is silent to that. And so by default, all those other commercial uses have been subject just to this lower end registration tax. And so there is opportunity there if you wanted to fix the code to capture that other group of commercial aircraft users.
Maybe we should seize that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Harriet? Paul?
Yes, a couple questions here related to, first of all, I did the math based on the doubling effect of what you had varies, was projected in the, pertaining to the single engine aircraft, which indicates a year, you'd indicate an increase based on 2,050 aircraft registered. Is that what the numbers you have?
This is 2,500.
2,500, okay, well, maybe my calculator's wrong, or maybe new math messed me up here. I too have been hearing many concerns about the doubling of the, I guess whatever you want to call it, tax, fee, whatever. I see, on the first hand, I don't own an aircraft, although I know many people who do and fly, and very concerned about this issue. I see the need to use the fees to help the enhancements up to and around the airports, and also for response of our responders in case there is a downed aircraft or an issue that goes on with the aircraft. I realize Merrill Field, Mr. Starr talked about some of the fees that are charged to pay for the operation at Merrill Field itself. Speaking to Birchwood and probably the Lakewood, I'm not sure what the specifics are in there. I've still got some research going. Is there anything that we can do, the municipality out there? I realize it's probably a state-controlled airport, and we do have a road that goes up in that area, but they're served by Chugach Volunteer, which I understand their residents pay for their own mill rate for that service as well. But for flight shacks, call boxes, something that they could use to, I guess, enhance the airport for an increase in fine. And then also the doubling of the fee seems to be a big concern. Even the brand new vehicles on the motor vehicle registration doesn't show a doubling. So
For older cars, it more than doubles,
Right.
but for newer cars, it doesn't.
We need to move up, we need to move this on, we just need to go specific questions.
And then specifically then, I just wanted to double check, because again, I don't own a camper or an SUV or a snow machine like that. Are those items taxed as personal property in the municipality?
No, they're not. I think a long time ago they were, but it was very problematic, the amount of effort put into trying to track them down, because they're not as well tracked, and they're also much smaller value, generally speaking. So it wasn't worth the resource to put into that for the money you'd get back. And so to be able to focus on the things that were more identifiable and more efficient to pursue, those were exempted many years ago. It's been a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Pat, one follow-up question.
Yeah, what Mr. Starr mentioned sort of resonated. How do we, if we increase this fee, how do we deal with the, I think, very real likelihood that aircraft owners will simply register their aircraft elsewhere in order to escape the fee? And if they do, what recourse do we have?
Well, the law that's written right now talks about what criteria are met in order for them to be required to pay the fee. So as long as they maintain a tie down within the municipality of Anchorage, and they have as their address of record, that they are connected to the municipality, they'll continue to have to pay. Registering somewhere else isn't going to help them if they continue to use the tie down. We get tie down reports from all these airport sites, and we reconcile that against our records.
Mr. Starr just told us there are 600 aircraft based at Birchwood. You have records that say there's 100.
Right, and these are, what I was referring to are permanent tie-down arrangements they have different arrangements with different aircraft owners. So I was trying to just emphasize that the group that are truly affected today by the aircraft tax, whether we can capture more or not, is smaller than the 400 or the 600.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I'm pretty sure it's bigger than 100. I'd be stunned if there are 500 transient aircraft based at Birchwood.
We can look into why it is. There is a disparity, but there is a disparity.
Well, I guess on this specific, if there's that great of a disparity within the data that we have and what the actual facts on the ground are, it seems to me we might be able to get the same amount of revenue you're talking about here if we actually figure out which planes we're supposed to be taxing. And if we get that taken care of, then maybe we look at a fee increase based on what we learned from the discussion. I think we look at this.
We can look into it and report back to you. There are reasons why, and it's based on what we get from the airport. So if they're not giving us full, accurate information, that's something we have to talk to them about.
I wish you would before it
Yeah.
comes in front of us, because we have to take action on it. And the action we take, we'd appreciate having accurate
Okay,
information.
we'll do that.
Want to move on to the next section, deal with fire department. Just a quick question for you though on vehicle fees. Is there any way we can create a vehicle license fee for historic vehicles? Because I know the state gives historic license plates for specific cars. Can we have a different taxing structure in place for those? Because they're not used for common usage.
Right. I don't know the answer, but we'll try to find out.
Look into it for me if you will. Moving on to the fire department.
You guys wearing pink fire helmets too? How you doing?
How are you?
Good. I'm John Drzdowski, the new Deputy Chief of Administration of the Fire Department. And this is Acting Fire Marshal James Gray. So we're here to talk about the fire department fees. There's basically two sections of fees. One of them is related to the increases in plan review fees. James is here to discuss those. And I can discuss the cost of service fees related to out-of-service area charges.
Go ahead, James.
Well, just quickly, our fees are, correction, they're about fire inspection fees, maintenance inspection fees. They haven't been increased since 1999 when they were instituted. And they're all pretty small increases. We limited them primarily to the large occupancies that take a lot of time and we really don't have fee increases for. For the majority of the fees, we left them the same for things that were already reasonable, that didn't take that much time. The hourly fees that we changed were after hours inspection fees when folks require inspections on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. And we just did that to match the building department, the same fees the building department changes. We decreased one fee and got rid of it just because it just didn't make any sense. And so our net change for the inspection fees are not very substantial.
Thank you.
The out-of-service fees represent when the fire apparatus leave the fire service area, the Anchorage Fire Service area, and respond outside to provide several types of services from fire protection to technical rescue. We discussed in the EMS fees that are there now. I know that was a question for Associate Editor. I know that the legal department who helped work on this, they may be able to shed some more light on that one specific issue.
Okay. Let's go around the assembly members. Jennifer?
I understand there's a kind of a balance between the inspection fees and cost of inspections. Do any of these begin to cover your costs? I mean, some of your hourlies look pretty up, especially for some of the larger units.
Yeah, I would say for the particular inspection fees, they probably cover the cost of the services for the majority of them through the chair. Our overall costs of our division, though, our fees don't support the cost of our division. They just supplement the tax revenue in our division.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie?
I'd like clarification where the out-of-area services apply. If we have a mutual aid agreement, are we still implementing charges?
No, I don't believe so. Mutual aid agreements would be different. This would be in those areas that, for example, the three areas that we respond to from Anchorage would be at the far end of Eagle River Valley Road,
Okay.
Bear Valley.
I understand, I just want that
Yeah.
really clear. All right.
Yes.
And then I really have some concerns about the ambulance fees. As Representative Fairclough, Mr. Starr and I spent a lot of time getting an ordinance passed on differential ambulance fees. You're scaring me that we're losing it.
First thing is that the proposal is to reduce it, but I might need to turn to the Dean Gates, who's the attorney who worked on this with us. And I believe that wasn't supposed to be there because it's covered in section 16 EMS, so.
Yeah, there is another section that's not in this ordinance that's about the fees for ambulance service in Chugiak Fire Service Area, Language Fire Service Area, and these fees in this ordinance are outside those service areas.
I would like to understand the new fees in relation to AO 173 as one that was passed in April of '09.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
No, ma'am?
That's it.
Pat?
How often are we responding outside of the service area, roughly per year?
Can't keep this copy.
Oh, it's my only copy.
In the Eagle River area, maybe 30 or 40 times, maybe in I don't have the exact numbers, but it's not a lot. Okay. Up Bear Valley would be even less. Many of the calls we have up on the upper hillside would be to the state park area. And we were discussing, there's a lot of different scenarios that you can go through here. So like in the state park scenario, if there was a wildland fire, it would actually be a mutual aid response. If there was a technical rescue into the park, that would be a different scenario once again. The area that this would encompass, where it'll probably be the biggest change, is down the highway and the addition of the technical rescue services. So we're saying if we respond past Potter Valley, which is the basically the line fire service area, performed any kind of technical rescue, you would get a bill for that. And that'd be water rescue, vehicle accident. Those kinds of things happen quite frequently down there.
Yeah, I guess if we respond to a vehicular accident on the Seward Highway, which seems to happen every other day, are we recovering our costs? Do we bill the state for that?
No, we don't bill anybody right now for that. Other than the ambulance provides a bill if they transport the patients. But the fire apparatus are paid for by fees collected through the fire service area, but they're leaving the fire service area to provide a service.
Okay. And do we think this is sufficient to actually cover those costs? $100 an hour for a fire truck?
There's more though.
Yeah, there's a fee, there's an upfront fee for just dispatching the call.
And then there's a fee for each
Yeah,
apparatus.
so there's a $500 fee for the call out, and then there's an hourly rate for each apparatus that responds.
It's way more though.
Okay, I think it's reasonable to do this. We probably want to start tracking what our costs are for that kind of response. It seems to me we're not going to, it's not going to balance out at first blush.
It's going to be a big step forward, though, compared to nothing.
Yeah, I know extending the fire service area south might be contentious.
Not when they start getting bills.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And they've always received bills for fire service. If we respond down there for fire, as a property owner, we would send them a bill.
Right.
A lot of the incidents there weren't, it was an abandoned car, and we didn't have any way to recover that. There's still not, there isn't any way to recover it. But we're going to broaden the scope of the services that are covered under these fees of service.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Starr, we have about 45 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm actually a proponent of expanding that. It makes sense, especially when we've got Upper Eagle River Valley folks that aren't contributing anything in tax basis and feel comfortable with the fire protection service. So, we've had that discussion. You mentioned that early at the start you had a permit fee increase. I see the inspector's fees and the after-hours stuff, but a plan review fee you mentioned when you first started, where does that show?
There's no plan review fee.
There's no plan review increase?
No plan review increase on our side.
Got it.
If there was, it was covered under community planning and development earlier in the base permit fee, and I don't think we had an increase in our plan review fees as part of that.
Correct.
This is all just maintenance inspection. That was
Got it.
not plan review.
And I guess we'll do an offline on the false alarm response. You're increasing that based on the total number after 10. They get. I read it somewhere else other than.
Yeah, that's not our false alarm. That's a police department false alarm.
And they're coming up.
Never mind. Thank you.
Ernie? No, I'm good. LV?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions, and I'll be really quick. But let's start with number 49. Okay, it's an increase in fee for record retrieval, and the projected revenue is only $50. And I have the same question for 47, 44. Am I missing something? 47. Well, let's start with 49. increase in fee for record retrieval, and it's going up to $40, and the estimated projected revenue is only 50?
Through the chair, Ms. Lynn Jackson, this is a proposal that was initiated by the police department in terms of trying to increase the costs for some of the requests for information that they get. But we didn't isolate it then to just changing the police department's fee amount. And so that's why for some of these other departments, there's some small amounts. It wasn't something necessarily initiated by them, but we want to be consistent in how the municipality treats this. So that's why you'll see some really small incremental changes. It's really the police department where you should see more substantial.
But it still doesn't explain why, let's look at 49, why it's so low. I mean,
They don't get many requests.
so they get 1.25? That's the question. Number 49.
Yeah, 10 a year, $5 increase, $50.
Okay, all right, well, it still looks really low to me as projected revenue, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Harriet. Paul?
Real quick, does this fee for responding out of service area, and you're talking about Potter or South, what about if they came from the other end, from Girdwood up, did they charge fees for this, their response as well, or do you know? Or is this part of this?
That's something that's unclear to me, if the volunteers are going to also use this fee structure. That's one question that.
And then just anecdotally, if someone is in a car crash and they're unconscious and they themselves don't call for assistance, they find it real difficult to be able to, I guess, charge them for something if they don't have a direct request and somebody else call for them to respond. It might be a difficult issue to deal with. And same thing with the technical. Somebody gets hurt out on the side, break their leg, and a good Samaritan called in. They didn't call for your help. So it's something
I think the
that.
case to be made is that they caused the call to be made. In other words, they were the reason the call was made. You can probably make a case that there should be a
Possible.
sign for it.
Any other questions, Paul?
No.
Okay. Thank you to the fire department. Moving down to the fire department, we're now down to municipal attorney. $50 through $55 on your white sheet. Hi, Dennis.
Mr. Chairman.
You want to go through it?
Sure. The admin fee is the fee we charge folks that come to our counter to deal with the civil impound of their vehicle for driving while under the influence or driving without a valid license or not having insurance. The fee is shared between us and APD. Currently that allocation is $190 for our department and $200 for APD. The change that we're asking for would be solely for our department to cover changes in employee costs since 2002 when it was last changed for that purpose. The code itself was changed last in 2003 because the filing fee went up, so it did make more sense. Of the $190 that we currently get for our office, 90 of that is for the district court filing fees. The $100 covers our admin employee costs. So we're asking for that $100 to be changed to $120. That portion hasn't been changed since 2002.
Thank you. Jennifer?
No.
Deb? Pat? Bill?
No.
Ernie? Elvie?
Nothing, Mr.
Harriet?
Chairman.
I'd say increase it.
Paul was a perfect record. What happened?
I'd say increase it more. You know, these are operating for under criminal activity, and I could see raising this to $1,000 and reduce the increase to the airplane fee.
The code structure for these 6 provisions was specifically set up so that we wouldn't do it as a revenue generator. It specifically says so in the AAMs and ordinances. So unless that were included in a change, I couldn't.
Be more than happy to revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Moving on down, we're now down to Parks and Rec, and I want to bypass Parks and Rec and come back and pick it up, and we're done with the rest of them. We're now down to Police Department. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Okay, first item on the list are a couple false alarm fee increases. One is we have a registration right now that is free. You're supposed to register your alarm. Many people don't. There's no teeth in it.
These are burglar alarms?
These are burglar alarms. We're talking about burglar alarms. Only burglar alarms for the purposes of this discussion. What we propose, part of what we want to do is suppress false alarms. Okay, we want to go to alarms that are good, that are actually burglaries, they're not false alarms. And we want to not go to alarms that are malfunctioning equipment. So we have to have the means to suppress the nuisance calls. We go to about 800 false alarms a year. There was an item in the PERC report. So one of our suggestions is that we charge $25 for the registration fee. And you'll see later that if you have 12 false alarms in any consecutive 12 months, then we revoke your registration, which means you can't have an alarm and we won't respond to it. So that's a means to try and suppress false alarms. The other thing we've done in here is increase the fee for false alarms. It used to be that you, after your third false alarm, you would be billed $75. Now, you get one freebie under this proposal. False alarm 2 and 3 is $125, and then they go up $25 a false alarm thereafter until you hit your 12, in which case we revoke your registration. So that's what those three together do.
Well, Jennifer?
Just on that part?
No, just on everything dealing with police department.
Just on the alarm registrations, how are you gonna collect that? You gonna do that through the companies that place the alarms, or?
We'd work with the alarm monitoring companies, and I think that would be the best way for us to, get their client list and work with them that way. We could keep tabs of when false alarms come in and we find out it's not a registered alarm. We'll have to work out the operational pieces. We might go the first time, and then when we're there, we're gonna talk to the people about getting, setting up to collect their $25. Maybe hand them a registration form, start a process that way. A lot of this will depend on how cooperative the alarm monitoring companies are. We do have some audible alarms that don't have monitoring companies, they just make a lot of racket. Those folks will self-identify to us, I think, over the course of time. I don't know if this is something that we can throw the switch on and have 100% compliance right off the bat. There'll be an educational process and take us a while to get there.
And the cost of collecting this fee, did you run that too, or is it more of a way of managing the situation?
Well, it's a little bit of both. It's trying to manage the situation and suppress the nuisance calls. And if we can't suppress them, then we have to keep going, then we want to recover our costs. So that's the alarm piece. Moving on, there are some other new fees and so forth in here. One is we're not done with yet, and that's reasons, increasing hourly rate for services that we bill. So I think we're going to be doing more work on that 147 that you see there. So I don't know if you have questions on that. If not, I'll move on. The next one's meter.
Move through all of them, 57 to 68, and then I'm going to go around for questions.
Okay. The next one is fees for license applications for caterers permits. We issue caterers permits about $500 per year. We're not charging for that service at all. Takes a couple hours, I think, takes 1 to 2 hours of staff time, a little bit of non-sworn, a little bit of sworn time to do the research and issue the permit. So we propose recovering that. Oh, I skipped one. Thank you, Cheryl.
Mr. Trainey's favorite one?
Yeah, Mr. Trainey's favorite one.
So you are Second Amendment opposition, huh?
No, I'm not.
I'll have it come out.
I just wish to, in fact, you'll be happy to know we have shortened our form to 3 pages.
Yes, but you've shortened down to only one question. Do you have any criminal record? If the answer is no and you verify that, that should be it on somebody getting a Class 4 permit. Sorry. But we'll talk about that.
We've gone from 10 to 3, so we're off to a good.
You should go to 1. Anything beyond that is intrusive.
That gets it more convenient perhaps for the applicant, but it doesn't save us any work because we still have to dig into all
How long
of
does it
that.
take to run a background check on somebody? Their social security number, their driver's license number, and you're done.
A lot of the things that would disqualify you for a permit aren't in an absent NCIC.
But what does a 214 have to do with that? It doesn't disqualify you. We have a lot of people who never went in the military. In your current form, you're asking for a 214. You're asking, were you in the military? That's irrelevant. We'll talk about it, okay?
We'll talk about it. But in any
Please go on
event,
through the rest of this.
it
I'm
takes-
sorry, I should have issued a disclaimer, shouldn't I?
Should just
Go ahead.
It takes about 2 hours to do one of these permits, and so we propose charging for that price of $150.
Now, are they gonna pay it only if they're approved, or they have to pay it either way?
I don't know. We haven't turned one down yet.
Good.
Well, it takes the same amount of work to approve or disapprove, It's about 2 hours worth of staff work to get
Well,
it.
some of my people just wanna know what kind of gatekeeper we're dealing with. Anyway, finish down through here.
Okay.
I may have to let you take over when I get to it.
Okay, we have several pertaining to copying charges. But when the ordinance was written that allows us to charge for copies, there was really not much there. There's a police report, there's a photocopying machine, that was basically it. We have a lot of medium these days. We have audible tapes, audio tapes, digital video. More and more people want custom computer research. People are now getting accustomed to ordering tons of information. We have new laws that cause us to redact certain information or allow us to. So a lot of our expenses right now isn't so much copying and taking a piece of paper and shoving it in a photocopier. It's taking a police report that's that thick and having a clerk and a detective go through it word by word and clean out every piece of information that the person ordering the form isn't entitled to have, and then photocopying it. So this allows us to recover the time we invest in redacting and researching, as well as merely photocopying reports. It also deals with some of the new medium that we deal with. For instance, we'll have somebody wants to get their computer back after they're convicted of a pornography case. Well, they might be entitled to the computer, but they're not entitled to have the child pornography back. So we have to clean that up. And
Do we wipe the hard drives?
Pardon me?
They do. Do we wipe the hard drive?
We're going to, yeah, and then charge them a fee for our time to do that. So those are all kind of wrapped up in
I'm gonna work my way around here.
Okay,
Chief,
so I
can
think-
I move on to questions, because we've got a half an hour left.
Yep.
Jennifer, anything dealing with 57 through 68? Debbie?
So basically, this annual registration alarm assumes you're gonna register 10,000 alarms. It seems like an incredible amount of work and cost to do that. I guess I want some reassurance that you can do that without causing your cost to go up pretty substantially.
We're going to try. I mean, right now, we have the ordinance right now that says they're supposed to do it.
Currently you do it, but you don't charge for it.
Yeah, we do it, but we don't charge for it.
You're registering alarms now?
Yes.
Okay. And then the $110 an hour is what we set up a few years ago. Now we're going up to 147.
The 110 is for non-overtime. It's for details that were submitted so far in advance that we avoid double time. I mean double time. And that number I think we're going to be reworking as well. The 147 is for last minute requests that are filed so short that
Okay,
we
it's
either
limited.
pay double time for them or,
I got it.
okay.
Last question. ASD alarms, do they follow under this? Do you
No,
respond to ASD?
we are suggesting that we exempt all municipal buildings from.
Okay, that might, we
so we're
might
not
have
gonna-
language for that then.
So we don't charge ourselves. The city doesn't charge itself, doesn't charge the district.
Okay, thank you.
Beth?
Chief, my wife got an alarm for our house for reasons that are still not clear to me, but
Did she give you the code?
fortunately, yes.
Locking you in, Patrick.
It could be, actually, it's been from the boys' club, I think, but, so she got, I think, through Guardian or somebody. Would they register it with you automatically, or do we have to do that on our own, in your experience? I mean, do they tell you when they install a new alarm?
I have to ask the dispatch people how that works. I think that we could work with them and we might ask them for the client list. We have a pretty good relationship with Guardian. But whether they're actually providing us all that information now or just telling their clients that they got to do it, I'm not certain.
They mentioned it, well, who knows? Because I presume this $250,000 you're talking about is a one-shot deal, because there's maybe 10,000 alarms in the city that aren't registered, but you wouldn't get that the year after, would you? Or is it an annual registration? Annual registration?
Yeah, annual. And through the chair, part of the issue in the perf report, it spoke to the amount of hours that officers spend responding to the false alarms. And that's really a big, I mean, that was a big chunk.
Well, I get that, but I'm still not clear. I mean, there's no incentive to register your alarm if you're now gonna charge them $25 a year. If you want to go after fees for false alarms, I get that.
Well, what we would do is we would not, we'd probably give them, since it'll be an educational period, we'll probably give them one freebie that they're not, that wouldn't be deserving under the ordinance. But once they know about it, we would flag them. We could not go to their alarm. If they want the police to respond, they better have a registered alarm. We wouldn't go.
Okay. And then these copying charges, I presume criminal defense attorney gets the materials from the district attorney. They're not paying these fees, or they are.
Say this, I'm sorry.
If a criminal defense attorney is entitled to the
Oh, that's a discovery process.
Yeah.
We're not billing for that. We're talking about,
Beyond
you're having a beef with Paul, you're suing each other, you want copies of reports.
Okay. That's actually probably pretty likely, but okay.
I should clarify one thing though about the PERF report. The PERF report took a different tack. What they suggested is, to get out of the alarm problem, is that we don't respond to any alarms until private security has gone there and checked them out first. We didn't take that approach to dealing with the problem, because in our opinion what happens there is, so we would normally be there in 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that. Now it's 20 minutes before we find out, yeah, it actually is a burglary, and we need to go over there, and by then the burglar's gone. So we thought that approach prevented us from actually catching the perpetrator.
Well, if the alarm is going off, the neighbors are going to call you anyway. They don't care who the private security firm is. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Starr, sir?
Is there any sort of police database that when an officer responds to an address, it could tell him that there's an alarm at the location?
Not that I know of.
So
Now it is, we could probably build that capability into.
it would seem to me it would enhance your service response if you get a call for somebody prowling the area and the address is one with an alarm and the alarm hasn't gone off yet, then maybe that's some value you provide back to the person to incentivize them to log it. I don't know. I'm just trying to go back to what benefit do they get for the $25 fee. And if it's an administrative one, I can't really say that it's a help to me. But
The system currently doesn't do that, but I don't know that it would be very difficult to modify it to allow it to do that.
you guys respond to a lot of auto alarms?
No.
Does OnStar have a glass break thing where they would call you automatically and say that?
I think so. That was getting started just before I left before. Since I went back, I haven't heard any talk about it, but my understanding is that the technology's up and running and works, so I'm assuming that we are getting
So if somebody calls you and says, hey, the auto alarm's going off next to my house, not my auto alarm, but that, do you guys respond?
We probably would, yeah.
Do you charge the homeowner in the?
No. These, we're talking about installed residential and commercial burglar alarms.
Just saying, you're gonna respond, to a user fee. I just, you get 10 of those going off every year.
I can't remember being called to an auto alarm going off. I'm not saying it's never happened.
Yeah.
We would go, we would put it in the stack. It might not, it might be a while if we were busy before we got there, but we would go, and it's a suspicious circumstance, we would go take a look at it. If it ever got to be a nuisance level, yeah, you bet we would probably be at it.
Well, I mean, I'm not, we're getting farther along, but this recent pellet gun shooting, if OnStar had a call mechanism, you could have gotten 5 calls in a row from OnStar. That's the same, you just had glass breakage.
Yeah, we would probably respond to that.
Anyhow, it's all about fees today, not.
Ernie, any questions?
I think pertinent questions have been
Elby,
asked.
any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Harriet? Paul?
Quickly, Chief, and I fully believe that you're on the right track, especially in the area of copying services and the disk and the new copy that wasn't in there before, because having been one of those people having to track all that down is very time consuming. My concern is that costs are all over the sheet. I mean, you got $147 on an overtime for double, you've got $100, you got $110. I personally would challenge the administration to look and see what the true cost is, and then perhaps, maybe through council, find out if we can add a CPI in there, so that we have a fixed cost in 2010 or 2011. Could there be a codified issue if we have to adjust the code to make sure that there's, that's in there? And that's I guess that's my comments. The costs are all over. I mean, there's some charges. There's $100, there's $110.
The part of what happened there is different people work the numbers for these different proposals, and sometimes it's not the same person. It's a dispatcher doing this research, or it's a clerk doing this research, or it's a detective doing that. So the hourly rate for those people would often differ.
But really, it's pretty consistent. I mean, it's 100 hourly rate, 100 hourly rate, 100 hourly rate, and then 15 and 15 for discs. So,
Then there's, but he's saying 2 hours to do a federal firearms, that's $150.
I was just talking about the copying charges that you referred to at the start.
Sure, I understand. I'm just saying the rates are all over. If it's 2 hours that you're averaging on a federal, and I agree with Mr. Training here about the one pager, and realistically, 2 hours is not unusual to do a background check, sometimes 3, but whatever that be, I would say charge it for the hour and call it.
And to be honest with you, the one on item number 61, that's a fully loaded cost of a street officer. So you're talking guns, belts, cars, gas, all that. Then the rest of these fees for administrative processes, we just took the salary. We didn't figure their.
Sure, especially if it's done on duty time. And that might be another thing to add too, is if you have to do this on an emergency and have to pay somebody overtime or late at night or a weekend to do it, so you can meet a deadline, perhaps.
Anything else, Paul?
That's it.
Thank you, Chief. The next group is Public Works, which is going to be 73 through 113.
Mr. Chairman,
It's
do
a
you want
big
to
group.
skip public transportation?
Would you like to do that one?
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
Okay, sorry.
Isn't it?
Public transportation. I want to get down to the big one. Let's do public transportation.
So close.
You almost made it out of here. I'm sorry.
Friday almost
Sorry,
started
Ron.
early, honey.
Hi, I'm Jody Cars, I'm the Director of Public Transportation, People Mover. When we were preparing our 2011 budget, we were looking at perhaps doing a fare increase to provide additional revenues in lieu of some budget cuts. Our last fare increase was in 2005, October 1st, 2005. It's been over 5 years since we've had a fare increase. One of the things that we did in preparing for a proposed fare increase was look at other properties. We looked at 47 agencies, the ones in Alaska, Mascot, Juneau, and Fairbanks and Anchorage, as well as places all over the lower 48. We averaged what their fares were just to see how we fell in comparison. And one thing we found was that our youth passes tended to be within 3 to 5% of what our peer averages were. Where we really were off were with our reduced or our senior, people with disability, and Medicare cardholder passes. Those were all about 30% lower than other agencies within the states. What we also looked at was really if you're a bus rider or you watch people get on the bus, it's real hard for a lot of our passengers to scrape up a cash fare. People who are paying cash fares are often digging into their piggy bank to get those pennies. So we made a proposal that would just increase the pass fares. So monthly passes for adults and monthly passes for senior citizens and people with disabilities, as well as day passes for those two categories. And day passes are, it's a pass you pay one fare when you get on, you can use the pass all day long. We also proposed increasing the cost of our ID cards from $3 to $3.75, kind of a minor increase. It actually costs us about $5 to do those photo ID cards, but because of limitations on how much we can raise our fares, we only went to $3.75. And then finally, one fare we're proposing to raise is a summer youth group fare. So during the summer months, the YMCA, Campfire, Alaska Club, any club that has groups of youth can get a summer bus pass and ride all summer long. So those are the 6 categories that we're proposing to increase.
Thank you, ma'am. Paul?
I guess once again, I'm going to just, and I don't have a problem with the fare increases, but it does seem to be, instead of like a percentage, like a 10% increase across the board or something, it seems like they're falling a little bit, like for instance, the monthly fee apparently for adults is about 10%, and then going to seniors or ADA and Medicare Pass is a little higher than that. So
Exactly.
just any justifications that would lead to that, or is it?
The reason behind that is our seniors and our reduced fares for senior citizens, people with disabilities, are significantly less than the industry.
I'm sure they appreciate that.
Absolutely. Another thing, since we do get Federal Transit Administration funds, our requirement there is that we have to offer a half cash fare. So 50% of our adult fare, the cash fare, would have to be for seniors and people with disabilities. And but that's only during non-peak hours. And when FTA was up doing our review, they commented on how low those fares were. So that was one of the reasons I proposed raising it.
Any other
at a higher
questions, Paul?
percentage.
That's it.
Harriet? Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really quick, Jody, the photo ID, that's for like the ESP passes?
For ESP, people who want to, seniors and people with disabilities who want to just pay their 25 cents and they may not have an ID card or something, it would be passes like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie? Bill?
Did I see the UAA reader board that said that with the UAA pass, you ride the people move for free?
Yes,
Do we have an MOA that's been adjusted to reflect increased costs?
yes. It started out, that program started out about at least 10 years ago. And they were paying $36,000 a year. Today they're paying over $80,000 a year.
When's the last time we raised it?
I think it was 2 years ago.
And we wouldn't adjust that any other way, or, because they're, UAA campus in Anchorage has got a higher student population now than ever. So
We base it on their population, so and what we did is we got a 2-year contract. So again, I think we raised it, the last time was 2 years ago. I think this spring we'll look at their population, how many students, faculty, and staff they have.
what do we do with ASD in that category then?
School district isn't involved.
They don't provide, you don't get to ride the bus for free with the ASD?
No.
No.
Thank you. Pat?
Just on the summer passes, is that for an entire group?
I think it's a group of 20.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie?
Nope, already covered.
Jennifer? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also make a point of clarification too, that in our budget that we submitted October 1st, the revenue we anticipated from fare changes is overstated by about $100,000. And that's because after we did our budget, we again talked with and worked with Jody and Public Transit and revised we changed what we were going to propose. So there's several areas, we've got some in here that aren't in the budget, so we'll go through that kind of reconciliation.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Didn't we
Sorry I missed you
propose a
earlier.
trip increase, but we took that back out.
Yeah, we had several changes that upon reflection.
So your revenue that you stated in the budget is overstated by 100,000?
Yes.
So in other words, you want to find another 100,000 to get rid of?
Well, and we have
More
some.
revenues to replace it.
Right, and we also have some that are not in
Partial
the
budget.
budget, but are in the AO in a positive sense, so we have pluses and minuses.
Thank you. Public Works now, which is 75 through 113. I know, but I just want to be sure we're talking about the right one. Welcome, Ron.
Real quick, I'll just go over the public works fees. They all have to do with the National Pollution Discharge Elimination process that's being federally mandated through a state and through state offices to do a program throughout the state. So most of the fees have to do with administering that program. One, the beginning starts out with permitting costs, just to basically cover our costs. Then there's annual fees that show a yearly amount, and those yearly amounts have to do with as the project's open and exposed and the ground needs inspection, those fees are annually as that project's still in the works. Once that project closes up and they finish and they finalize, then those fees go away, but annually while they go open. So anyway, if the ground's disturbed, that's what we're there for, to protect the stormwater runoff. So those fees would cover as long as that ground could have runoff. Then there's mapping fees in there, and then there's some snow melting fees at the end. And the snow melting, we have a company that comes around and will go to your place of business and melt snow, and then that snow gets when it turns to water, it gets discharged into our stormwater system. So it's an annual permit based upon a company that would come in and melt snow on site, so we can make sure and monitor that they're doing it as per our guidelines and dumping water correctly into our storm system. So that's kind of a brief overview of the public works, but it really all has to do with the increased demands in the stormwater area. We didn't put a huge increase because we don't know how many projects will come in. We don't know how many snow melting companies will come in. So we tried to reasonably estimate what our revenue would be possibly for the first year. As these requirements kick in, there will be more revenue in the projected years after that. But these are the ones that we kind of thought would happen in 2011.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I think I'll defer to Debbie because she's going to ask the same questions I'm about to ask.
Debbie?
I am still hearing from private people who are saying that what is being proposed by the city is stricter and different from the state regulations. Currently, we don't have this in place yet because it's in the new Title 21. I don't have a clue what specifically we're going to do for a single-family home.
This has been in place for many years.
What do you mean this is-
Parts of it, we've been doing stormwater reviews on all residential and all commercial for many years. It's getting more and more and more stringent, and that's what we're coming into. So yes, we have been doing these reviews, and SWIP plans are posted on every site. If you go by a job site, you'll see a board and it says SWPPP plan right there. It's mandatory on every site, and so it's been in place. What we're doing is they're making more and more, every year they're adding more and more restrictions on it, and that's what these fees are starting to get, the more and more work that we're created to do by those mandates, and so therefore.
Well, Ron, I'm telling you, if we're basing fees on Title 21 language that's not been adopted yet, it's problematic.
It's not in Title 21. There's a stormwater permit that we have with the state of Alaska that we're mandated, and the municipality would be fined daily if we don't adhere to this program. So it's been in place, and there's a permit in place with the state DEC for years, and we're actually I just signed the documents to further that next permit just today. That'll be going through the system through our administrators.
Well, there are significant changes that are being proposed in Title 21 that have not yet been adopted for this very thing. I would, at some point offline, like to know what costs we entail if a single property owner comes in and wants to build a home on its lot that justify this kind of a fee. And I'd also like to know, offline probably because our time is limited, how we can justify an annual fee for an existing structure with an already approved drainage plan. Frankly, I'm really troubled by these.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I think I need to.
There you go.
Pat? Bill?
Is there annual fees that go on to a larger user that would potentially be yearly fees once they close the hole?
Once they close the building, close the permit, I don't believe unless you end up working into the stormwater, like say the melting system coming to your property and they want to melt it on site and dump it into our storm sewer. But as soon as the project is closed up and all of the issues have been addressed in the final product, which is approved and meets code and the drainage system is in place, there is no annual fees for that. It's
You
just
mentioned the
during.
SWEP plan. I appreciate that answer. The SWEP plan enforcement, once the SWEP plan is filed and accepted by the state, is the enforcement of the SWEP plan details fall on the municipality?
Absolutely.
And why doesn't the state pay us to do that mandate?
They do pay.
They pay you?
Yes, they pay us a portion of that, correct.
And so we're charging the permit also, that is what you're doing?
Correct, to cover the entire plan of the whole, the portion that we do for the state, we do get a reimbursement, and I can track down that exact figure and pass that on in a future course.
Should we negotiate more money from them too, because it's increasing the
We
burden?
did negotiate more money this year.
Fees went up on their side too.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ernie? Elby?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Harriet? Paul?
Are these all 181 funds fees?
Well, these have nothing to do with 101.
101?
It's all 101, yes.
Is that all, Paul?
That's it? And I'm
Thank
sure
you,
Debbie's
Ron.
concerned.
Jennifer, you were holding your question. Do you have another one?
No, I think.
Okay. Next one should be solid waste. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Madsen, I'm the Director of Solid Waste Services. The fees that we've requested are basically a tipping fee increase of $3 per ton on just our weighed tonnage. There's also some provision in there for an equivalent volumetric fee, and that's we only use that in terms of when our system would ever go down as far as scales or power, so that we can continue operating. So, but basically it's based on the same $3 increase that we've asked for. When we looked at where we were at over the past 3 years, in 2008 and in 2009, each year we saw a decline in tonnage coming into the landfill of 5%. That equates to about $1 million in declining revenues per year. In the meantime, we've had quite a few increases in cost. Our labor budget for the disposal unit next year is projected to be about $700,000 higher than this year. Our depreciation costs, because we've added a new cell and a couple of other improvements at the landfill, goes up about $500,000 for next year. And our visa costs also go up proportionately anytime we do any capital improvements to our system. So basically, without the rate increase, and assuming that we have the same tonnage that we see this year, the disposal utility is expected to lose about $500,000. With the increase, and assuming that we get the same tonnage that we have this year, we'll come out about $200,000 ahead. So it's a pretty thin margin either way on about a $19 million operation. Keep in mind now, as I say, in 2008 and 2009, we saw 5% increases, or 5% declines in our tonnage both years. This year through the 1st of October, our tonnage has been about the same as we saw last year. So when you start looking at projections, I don't see anything on the horizon that would make us an increase in tonnage. And we're hoping that it will stay roughly the same or within about 2 to 3%. That's kind of where we're at with this.
Thank you. Paul?
I just noticed that, of course, the motor vehicles, and then apparently under solid waste, it's saying all the fines and fees would become effective January 1st, except those. What date would be effective on them?
The reason we have to, those are, I believe, in February.
Regulatory?
It's regulatory, so that our customers, the commercial haulers, have time to file their appropriate paperwork.
When do we anticipate these fees? Are we going in for like in November or December? When do we anticipate these?
It's on the assembly, the agenda is.
But once it's approved, that'll trigger them getting the notice to the haulers so they can do the RCA process.
So do they meet, I'm trying to think, meet January, December, or do you think?
Well, no, it's not necessarily when the RCA meets. It's once our fees have been increased, then it starts their clock of when they have to make their changes and notifications both to the RCA and to their customers, and both are required by RCA.
Anything else, Paul?
That's it.
Harriet? Elvie?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Does the slowdown in tonnage equate to the slowdown in construction and what they would be hauling into the dumps?
Well, generally, the trash volumes in Anchorage and pretty much anywhere else in the country are directly related to economic factors. That would probably be the largest driving factor. We have seen some declines associated with some of the recycling programs that are going on, but the biggest factor definitely is economy.
Bill? Pat?
We'll spend more time on this Monday.
I think we will.
I sure hope we do, because we spent a lot of time on fees for you for landfill fees very recently. And at the time, we were told, I thought, that the fees we approved were adequate. So I guess I'm at a loss why such a substantial fee comes up so soon after we just adjusted the fees. That's number one. And number two, why don't we increase everybody's costs? Why are we excluding the people in your service area, your pickup area? We're basically passing this on to everybody except the city pickup. Because you said, I thought, that you weren't gonna increase your pickup fees, basically just all the private contractors have to pay more.
At this time, well, my disposal utility, or my collections utility is in effect a private contractor separate to this. But, and it's up to Alaska Waste and the others, how they want to absorb that fee. If they want to pass it on or absorb it, that's up to them. And I don't know what they're going to do. That's,
Well, the
more than likely,
perception-
they're going to pass it along.
Well, the perception is that some people are gonna get hit by this and your customers are not. So that's a concern.
And we could talk about that on Monday in the business model. I don't have the
Thanks, Debbie.
collections.
Jennifer?
Yeah, as you might realize, I'm looking forward to Monday.
Absolutely.
Could you just clarify
Good
for me,
watch
I'm a
the
little confused by 114, line 114 and line 115, and what the difference is. I don't quite understand the verbiage here. And we have the same thing on your other, 116 and 117.
First one's the health, so,
Yeah. If you'll recall, when we raised the tipping fees, it used to be
Okay, so it's-
45 flat,
okay.
and now it's 60 and 50. And that's the same thing.
Okay, sorry, I just was having problems. We'll do the rest on Monday. Oh, I do have one other question. In the past, when we did raise the tipping fees, it was a lot of the reason was for care enclosure.
Yes.
This isn't.
No, this is just general operations. We work the care enclosure into our costs, and for example, this year, we're putting about $1.5 million into the care the dedicated care enclosure fund that we created in 2008. Even though our collection, or our requirement under the GASB regulations is about 1.1 million. When we created that ordinance, we were supposed to be catching up by 2015, so we're trying to.
And we look like we're doing that?
Overall, we'll have the money in our accounts, but not necessarily in that defined account by 2015.
So it still could be an issue. And probably as much of an issue because of also the economics of dropping.
Yes.
So we
Combined with
probably.
rising costs, like you said, labor costs, other costs, all of this.
So we're kind of have a lot to address, don't we?
We have a lot to work on.
We're talking about Parks and Rec. Let's get on the yellow sheet. We're gonna extend this one by about 10 minutes, because I wanna complete this. What? What time did you want
John DeCastelev, so why don't you go ahead and walk us through this, please?
All right, thank you. I'm John Rod, Director of Parks and Recreation. This is Liz Stanley, who is our principal admin person, budget control.
Keep it to one conversation, please. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
Thanks.
Yours, yes. We're all listening.
Just checking.
Most of these fees, I mean, you can walk through significantly. I'll work from the back to the front just because it's easier to explain. There's been a question relating to the service areas. The service areas set their own fees, and there are no adjustments for the Chugach River service area or for Goodwood. It's a pay-as-you-go, set your own standard model. So I'd like to take those off at the front end, and then flip back to the front. Fees were last changed in 2007. So they've been in effect for 3 years. We're working with Dean Gates to find the appropriate CPI, which allows us by code to move these fees forward. It's about 5.4%. 2 significant elements you see in here that have since been extracted, and that's Anchorage School District fees. The $46,000 that you see in the football stadium, and then the trail use fees. There are some other incidentals that had to do with field trips and picnic shelters and other facilities. I didn't break all of that out, but it relates to the discussion whether or not they were going to charge the school district.
That was about 79,000 total.
Yeah, close. So you can look and you'll see CIP continuously throughout. There are a couple of exceptions. There is a new fee, for example, Betty's Garden, which is a Cuddy Family Midtown Park. It's a new developed area, so that you would see as different, but a similar fee to what we would find for other facilities like. There is another one as you work your way down, and that is a one permit for the season for vendors. Currently, they come in every 3 days, they renew a permit. This would allow them to come in, get a single season permit, if you will, for 90 days. It saves everybody time. It allocates a cost relative to what would be a continuous cycle, if you will. There's another one in here, and there's a, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, excuse me. Let's see, I think that one came under the concessions and the alcohol. We did move the alcohol waiver up. You'll see that in it. It's CIP driven. That was adjusted a few years ago.
CIP or CPI?
Yeah, CPI.
Thank
you.
I was trying to figure out what project we did.
In mind, I haven't corrected it myself. There's too many things in my head right now.
Thank you for that clarification.
Anyway, maintenance service call. We, under park operations, we get a lot of requests to respond, unscheduled park use, permit issues, conflicts, extra track. I mean, there's a host of things that we could throw into that. It's kind of listed there. One of the other pieces, recovering the cost of transporting bleachers. People say, oh, we need the bleachers moved from here to here. It's a special event, whatever. Well, most of the time we just do it, but honestly, it doesn't. It's not too many of them, but it's still a cost. Probably the other thing is the greenhouse weddings. That's doubled, 75 to 150. It just covers the cost of the operations. We're not subsidizing people want to use the greenhouse. And if you go to the kind of the atrium area when you first go into the greenhouse up above, which is really a nice setting, $75 for a wedding is like an unbelievable price in the first place. So we're just trying to get our money back. What?
You could register an aircraft.
registration.
I'll defer to Mr. Starr.
No, you can't.
You see some in there for horticulture services, Alaska Railroad and Museum. No, that has to do with, I'm sorry, parkland use. You see some in there, and encroachment.
Railroad museum? What?
Two of them. No, this is combined. Alaska Railroad and
We provide horticulture
we provide
services for
services
them.
to them.
Okay, yeah, all right.
One of the other things is park use, and that's park encroachment. When I took the position, I didn't realize there was such a backlog of encroachments within park properties, and it consumes a lot of staff time. Jennifer knows one I'm talking about, if not two. Letters were recently sent out notifying property owners, and we will be going through the recovery process. It's both the enforcement as well as the staff time, and the actions are going to be required to either change what has happened, undo. I don't have the answer yet. We're working through legal to make sure that we don't overstep our bounds.
So when you say encroachments, people's fence extends from their yard into a park, is that?
I'll use the example, the common one that most people equate to is Westchester Lagoon and the Owens property. That turned into quite a nightmare.
Yeah.
Took a lot of time. There are two that most current I'm dealing with out in the almost in the hillside area, where individuals have basically expanded their backyard, not 2 or 3 feet, but 50 to 80 feet.
Was that all?
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's the
Well, we could use their storage
benches and the shrubbery and the rock walls and everything else is basically just cut back into an open green belt. Anyway, it's not legal, and so we're dealing with that. And so instead of just spending the money, we just ate the cost, well, we're going to start collecting for all of these things.
Is there a separate charge for the legal department, or is this for you to pay the legal department?
I'm going to let the legal department deal with that side of it. If they within their internal organization, we have not had that conversation, but we've been trying to calculate the costs associated with our internal staff workings, and we intend to recapture that.
Cheryl, would you put that on your follow-up list, please? Thank you.
Indoor-outdoor recreation centers, there's a couple things in there. The gyms probably significantly, the gyms and the bunker use. Commercial for-profit use, we're going to get back all the costs. It's kind of the ASD model when you get into that category. Recovering utility cost over for the surcharge for the kilns right above that. Currently, that's just been like a freebie. Golf and disc golf, all CPI, correct terminology. And continuation on the second page. Under the programs, they're a no net, they're cost recovery. So that's a wash, and that's how the programs are built. So those are not significant. Last page in aquatics, you'll see that swim fees, just to help offset the cost, we've got the children 3 and under, it's currently free. There is a cost because we do have to monitor closely with regard on the Tiny Tot area. The swim instruction and classes, again, CPI. The big one that you see further down has to do with Bartlett, and that's the increased utility costs. And that is significant, but when you put the number of kids in each lane, it's really not really much. But I know that swimmers oftentimes speak up, and we'll handle that as we go. The other piece is the same thing over at the West Pool, and that's cost of utilities. And then other things happen. Go on down, it's the same thing. Basically, we have a lot of utility costs. I mean, everybody knows what's going on in the pools. It's not cheap to operate them. Utility costs continue to rise, and we've seen quite a change, specifically at Bartlett. So,
thanks, John. Let's go around the room real quick. Paul?
Yeah, I have actually been contacted by some people from the pools, amazingly, and I guess one of the concerns is, are we doing enough to market the pools as far as, you know, we have staff, I know, and we used to have a better, more aggressive marketing staff with either managers or supervisor, however you want to call them, but this is something we might, if we don't have an adequate, it's something we might want to do is, it's a safe and good recreation, it's something that you can do in the winter or year round, and so it's something I would just encourage you, because clearly, the more we use it, the user fee should come in, it might offset, but the pool's going to be there, and the cost of electricity may be the same. The only thing we might save is some staff time being there.
I might respond to that a little bit. This came up a year ago, same thing. In fact, Matt Clayman, I believe, addressed it. And one of the opportunity for Gold Medal Triathlon, all of these special interest groups, it just said we have got to have these pools open. The mayor's office, my office, we had stacks of emails and letters coming in. I'll bet you 5% was the return. We kept them open. We said we do it for a trial period. They said they would help us get the word out. People for pools. We have done a lot of work to get that message out. But you know what? If you're not going to use it, you're not going to use it. And they didn't show up. Honestly, they didn't show up. And that's about 1,500 people that said they would assist. It's kind of hard to ignore at some point, particularly with the rising costs and the fact that we're going to have to reduce the budget. We have to make some tough choices. We can increase it, we can try and capture some of it, we can try and keep doors open, but the long and the short of it is, you know, quite honestly, people are not swimming the way they used to. The school district took the program out years ago. Huge, huge damage to swimming.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick comment. Thank you for this work session. But I really, really like the way this spreadsheet for Parks and Recreation is put together, because it shows current fee, new fees, difference, units, and then the estimated. And it's really helpful, and quite frankly, saves time calculating and getting your numbers messed up. So, and I think it would be helpful to the public, Cheryl, and I know that it's extra work, but if it's not too much extra work, it really would be helpful. Not to me anymore, but certainly to the public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When you go to a ASD-sponsored soccer tournament or a football championship, for example, down at the football stadium, and they charge me to get in $5, who gets the money for that?
ASD.
And the concessions that they have in that whole deal, do we regulate the concession use? Because, you know, obviously sometimes soccer
It's all part of the package of what has consistently been under the joint use agreement with the Anchorage School District. I've suggested it be revisited. I know it's a very contentious. I've been through it before.
Do you have to clean the place up after they leave?
Yeah. Whatever's not done by them, we send staff back in, so it's ready.
Do you do that at any schools or just the football team?
the 79,000 that we took out of the school district resolution, I can see the 46,000 with the stadium rental. What was the other part of that 79,000?
Use of park shelters, various field trips. I didn't break down every single component. It would be one of the huge tasks to try and take every little element, there's a picnic shelter, there's parks, there's cake, I mean, it's all over the map, but the aggregate lump sum of that is very particular of what we're not going to get back.
Okay, so, but the one that we really, so if we're looking at covering that, you really feel comfortable that we need to find $80,000 somewhere else, or 79,000?
Well, if we don't have the $80,000, we've got to come up with some matches somewhere else.
And in the stadium rental, that was just for the rental, that wasn't for the food concession, or was it?
No, it's a package.
Is there any way of separating out the food concession? Even though that was
Well, I think there's a number of things that could be done, but right now, the current facility is not usable based on a USGH report, and that's why it shut down this last season. We're looking within our capital program request to replace that.
Are you looking at doing it as municipality, or are you looking at doing it jointly maybe with the school district?
I requested their assistance and support. One exception to the current agreement is that I've met with ASAA, and they have agreed that they're going to pay their share going into next year, which is really, they've kind of blended, if you want to call it. I met with Gary Matthews, and he understands the situation, and they've agreed, just give them the number and they'll pay it. And I may come up with another couple of alternatives, similar to what Bill asked, and that is, if nothing else, some sort of an offset on revenues on a percentage basis of gauge. There's got to be some fairness, some equity in here somewhere.
Yeah, John, to follow up on that, could you get us a memo that sort of explains, here's how much we're collecting from ASD based on the current fee schedules we have in place. Here's what we contemplated.
Zero.
Zero.
Well, it's existing.
Well, we do in the swimming pools though, don't we?
Well, okay, if you want to
It's
break
like at hockey rinks do that.
facilities that have known operating costs, pools and rinks, that's where you generate revenues, but those are separated from, I'll call it those standard parks and recreation facilities, because part of the agreement with the school district was that they would pay us for the use of the pools when we absorbed that back 9 years ago, I believe it was.
Right. So that's what I'd like to get a feel for, how much is flowing from them to you now, and then I don't want you to break it down into every park shelter, but you have the 46 for this AFS rental and proposal, and then whatever the rest of that 33 would have been, just group it, right?
Okay, we can do that. That's fine.
Just to give us the big picture as we look forward.
Do you want the aggregate swim or the aquatics revenues as well as ice time revenues?
Yeah, let's break that down into two separate categories.
We can do that. George, through Debbie Fitzgerald, we would have to get. Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else on anything else?
I just have a question. Aircraft tax, does that fall into the tax cap?
Yes.
But motor vehicles is not going to fall in tax cap? We can down into
No, motor vehicles will fall under the tax cap in 2012.
All right. Cheryl, thank you very much for getting everybody organized. We're adjourned.